hey, can we talk about the thing that we're kind of avoiding talking about? And just know when there's a time set that we're going to talk about something, it actually kind of releases you from spinning about it before that time.
Money and love. With so much emotion around both subjects, there's bound to be difficulty, right? Well, while we can't eliminate all strife when it comes to relationships and money, we can become better communicators. At least I know I could use a lesson or two in that area for sure. To help us with this important topic, I've invited Abby Davisson on the show today. Abby is a social innovation leader, a career development expert, and the author of the new book, Money and Love, an intelligent roadmap to life's biggest decisions. Welcome to the show, Abby.
Thanks so much for having me, Andy.
Absolutely. Thank you for talking to us about this important topic and something we cover a lot on this show, which is great. And I'm glad we can help people in this area. Can you talk to me about just in general, why is there so much difficulty for couples when it comes to money?
Well, first of all, it's such a taboo topic, right? Even with somebody who you're very close with, it's hard to bring up, and we don't have any images from Hollywood or other places of, a romantic story of a couple getting to know each other and then sitting down and talking about their educational debt, right? Like we just don't see that happening. And I also think that there's this conventional wisdom that when we have financial decisions to make, career decisions, we use our heads and we think about them very logically. And then when we have relationship decisions to make, we are supposed to use our hearts, and you're supposed to really separate the two. And the truth is, that's a terrible way to approach things because these decisions are incredibly intertwined. And if you think about money decisions without bringing love in or vice versa, you're leaving out a huge element of the picture. So it would be bad to follow the advice that we are all brought up to think is the right way to go.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of that romanticized version of marriage that's out there for sure. Talk to us about some of these big life decisions that you're talking to us about today. What are some of these decisions that might come up or conversations that might come up?
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking about everything from I'm dating someone and how do I know if this is my person, to should I move in with them? Should we get married? Do we want kids? What if this relationship isn't actually going so well anymore and we need to think about dissolving it if we're married? That means getting divorced, all the way up through, my parents are getting older and how do I think about caring for them when they're not able to take care of themselves? So really big decisions that really shape our lives and have money and love at the heart of all of them.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I would assume over the past couple of years, I mean, our whole world has flipped upside down with the pandemic and everything like that. So these dynamics of the romanticized version of what marriage used to be have probably even changed even more. Have you seen that?
Oh, certainly. I mean, we all got a really up close look at our own mortality, right, during the pandemic. And that can cause you to take stock, to take a step back and say, hey, am I really living the life I want? Is this aligned with my values? If I've committed to someone, are we still pointing in the same direction in terms of what we want? And, that was certainly the true for me. My mom passed away in the last couple of years, and it really caused me to think about the legacy I wanted to leave. She left an amazing legacy, and these really intense times can be really prompting us to do some soul searching. And I was so glad that I was working on something that was full of meaning and purpose like this book during that time, because it was so important to be committed to something like that.
Oh, that's beautiful. I think that, although we did not enjoy the pandemic and everything that went through with it, I think that pause that we were able to get was a blessing as well, especially during times when it was most needed in our lives to really reflect and be with the people that we love the most as much as we can. Speaking about being with the people we love the most and trying to have effective communication, effective conversations, how can we be more effective and, I guess, empathetic when it comes to these love and money discussions?
Yeah, well, we lay out 5 steps for people to take when they are thinking through big life decisions. And the first step, which is so important when you start to talk with someone, is to actually get clear on what you want before you even get into the conversation. Sometimes we have such knee-jerk reactions to things that we just jump into the conversation before doing the self-reflection that is important to say, hey, here's what's important to me. Here's where I'm coming from. And so before you even open your mouth and talk to someone who you care about or you might be even married to, making sure you're clear on your own position first. And then actually in the conversation, making sure you don't just blurt it out and, decide that you're done with it, but take the time to listen to their response. And their response might actually help you change what's important to you. So it is a bit of a dance, right? It's two people talking about something that ultimately they want for their own lives, and you need to be open to being influenced too by what your partner cares about.
Yeah, I know that I've definitely done that in the past, caught myself just sitting there and listening, but sort of waiting to respond however I wanted to respond, because I had my thought right there. I'm like, okay, as soon as she's done talking, I'm just going to say the thing, instead of actually listening, putting myself in my wife's shoes in this example, and hearing where she's coming from with regard to this important topic, which sometimes in our relationship has to do with both love and money. So you talk about one of your C's as utilizing other resources besides maybe you and your partner, maybe like friends or family, to kind of check in to get a gut check. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I love the check-in step. This is one that just comes naturally to me. I'm an extrovert, so I love talking to people. And when you're in your own decision, it can feel very lonely, right? You can feel like, oh, I'm the only one who has ever gone through this. And that's so rarely the case. So the check-in step gives you a chance to A, feel less alone, but then also B, get ideas from other people about how they've thought about these decisions. And my husband and I took the class that my co-author taught, that was the genesis of this book, when we had only been dating for about a year, and we were about to graduate from graduate school. We were deciding, should we look for jobs in the same city? Should we move in together if we end up in the same city? And one of the ways we checked in was to interview couples who had lived together before they got married and talk to them about how they pooled their finances. How did they think about combining their money? And we actually got some really great ideas that we ended up using. And we wouldn't have thought of them if we hadn't taken the time to interview these folks. So it was very helpful for us early on in our relationship.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, sometimes the things that we do in our marriage or our relationship are what our parents did, and that's because that's what we know. So through these conversations, have you found, I guess, new modern ways to manage your conversations around money, or maybe even just the joint banking decision, things like that, that are maybe more evolved in 2022, 2023?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're so shaped by what we saw our parents do, for better or for worse, right? And the world has changed so dramatically over the last number of decades that it's so important to make sure that you're telling each other your money stories, so you have a sense of kind of where you're coming from, but then not let those limit you, right? To be able to be honest and vulnerable and do the things that build trust in a relationship, while at the same time moving forward together. And the check-in step can be very helpful to not hold yourself back by the thing that you saw most growing up, or you're really limited to.
Talk to the person who's listening and they're thinking, you know what? All of this, empathetic conversation and sitting on the couch and listening and then checking in with family and friends to make sure that I'm tiptoeing around the subject well enough. I am so busy. I don't have time for all this. What would you say to that person?
First of all, I get it. I have 2 little kids. My husband and I both work full time. Like, life is a circus. So I very much have empathy for that perspective. And I would say that this isn't about, drawing out a decision or, sort of dragging your feet. It's about being intentional and thoughtful so that you minimize regret on the other side of it. And sometimes, as humans, we don't like to sit in the discomfort of uncertainty. And so we kind of want to jump to the other side of that decision just to be done with it. So sometimes feeling like we don't have the time to do the research or, talk to people can be a bit of an excuse that we tell ourselves to just kind of get on with things. But research shows that those are the types of approaches that tend to lead to regret and that actually cause us more time on the back end when we have to clean things up on the other side.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I guess I like looking at things from the extremes standpoint and then finding that happy medium. So maybe on this side, the extreme might be like, I'm just going to say what I feel like and not even think about it. And the opposite side is maybe over analyzing it and over decision making it. And I think your happy medium is, yes, you know what? Take your time, have some conversations, make sure it's thought through. But I guess, is there a middle ground? Do you feel like we can overanalyze things?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you can get into analysis paralysis, and you don't want to do that. You do need to ultimately make these decisions. But I think you're right. I think there is a happy medium, and I think it's doing just enough. And we all have an innate tendency, right? A default state that we go to when we have to make these decisions. We actually have a quiz that we made up to help people identify their money and love decision-making styles. And it's good to know what your default is so that you can kind of put guardrails to catch yourself. So if you know that you tend to shoot from the hip and make decisions really quickly, you can kind of force yourself to slow down a little bit. But if you know that you're prone to overanalyzing and tons of spreadsheets and, gathering all the research, you can actually put some steps in to kind of force yourself to make the chess move, right? And not just get stuck in the spreadsheet. So it's really good to know your type so that you can, just give yourself a little push where you need it.
I think I'd like to take that quiz because I think I've fallen into both extremes. Just get this done and also overanalyzation into spreadsheets and everything like that. There's somebody listening and, they're thinking in their minds as they maybe saw the title of this episode and being like, yeah, you know what? I've got a big conversation that I need to have with my partner and it's coming up. I've been delaying it. And they know after hearing this episode, they're saying, okay, I got to do it. Let's give them one small step to begin this adventure after they finish this interview. What is the best thing they can do to lead into that conversation?
Well, the best thing to do is actually make a date to have the conversation. So these things are not great to bring up when you're busy or stressed or feeling anxious. So if you're like running out the door to the holiday party and you are just ran around wrapping the present and bringing the dishes, like don't bring it up then, but say, hey, maybe I listened to this podcast episode and something's been on my mind and can we just set a time to go for a walk? And, this is something my husband and I do all the time because we are big hikers. It's one of the reasons we live in the Bay Area. And we go as a family. We'll let our kids kind of run up ahead and we'll say like, hey, can we talk about the thing that we're kind of avoiding talking about? And we just know when there's a time set that we're going to talk about something, it actually kind of releases you from spinning about it before that time. So it can just help to just set a date and then, think about what you want to talk about, but don't stress about it.
I think that's great. Yeah, I've made the mistake of having big discussions like this in passing or in short periods of time, and they do not go well, my friend. So yes, heed Abby's advice and set a date for these conversations. Abby, tell people where they can find this book and maybe connect with you more.
They can go to moneylovebook.com, which is our website, and find out where they can buy the book, all the places that books are sold, and follow us on social media there.
Excellent. Abby, thank you so much for your time today and having this important discussion and dedicating your time to a really important topic that I think is going to help a lot of people. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Andy. This was fantastic.